Sometimes what you need to discover your old self, that old fire within, is to take a dip into unfamiliar waters. And when you rise from those murky shallows, the next storm comes. Welcome to Orion Does Music. Today we're taking a look at the 9th studio album from American thrash metal band Metallica called Death Magnetic. This is the second commission from my friend Kevin. He commissioned me to do this album as well as Saint Anger by the same band. Both album reviews should be going up on the same day, so if you haven't checked out the other one yet, go do that now. Or don't. I don't control you. My content's kind of mediocre, so I won't be upset if you don't. There's no secret that the 8th studio album, the one that came out before Death Magnetic, Saint Anger, was, let's just say, a brave attempt at some new ideas. It was a story of Lars Ulrich versus his drum set and the sound of aluminum. It was a story of James overcoming his own addictions and attempting to tell that in story format. There were so many things around the release of this album. There was the Napster incident. There was the internal band issues. There was things that were covered into some kind of monster documentary. There was so much happening, but unfortunately, these reasons, among others, and just among the general production of the album, ended up making a shit can effort. While the albums before Saint Anger, Load and Reload, were an attempt to try out some more like southern and blues rock inspired things with general hits rather than misses, Saint Anger was a shot fired blindly into the dark that did not hit any targets. Right here though with Death Magnetic, it is the spotlight needed for Metallica to show that, once again, they are kings when it comes to metal. They know how to put together a fantastic album. And I'm going to tell you about how they did that. Right from the first song on the album, That Was Just Your Life, Metallica is looking to right every single wrong that may have been done on Saint Anger with their return to fast, heavy, thrash-centered and focused metal with solos to boot, solos which were very non-existent back on the previous effort. Fast-paced, high-energy, inflamed guitar work from both James Hetfield and Kirk Hammett just absolutely immediately give you almost a booster shot of adrenaline that's much needed. It's a return to form in many ways, along with the way that Metallica, with how they make every instrument combine and create a certain atmosphere. The atmosphere that they produce is almost anxiety-inducing. It takes you out of any ease, any calm sense of mind the first time you listen to it. You think, okay, just gonna be a typical, metal album. And it's not quite hitting the sort of like mind-racking, like skin-crawling features that's like black metal or doom metal can hit you, but Metallica knows just how to take you out of your comfort zone in terms of what you expect from a metal album. If I'm being completely honest, Metallica hasn't had such a solid introduction track to an album ever since their self-titled album 18 years ago at the time of the original release of this album. 18 years it took for this kind of introduction track to come to a head again. Even the lyricism here feels like something more at home with stuff that's more into the classic Metallica era as opposed to the modern Metallica era. All in all, the wolves are brought back to pasture with this song, and it doesn't stop in its momentum with just track one. It goes on and on. From a war-torn individual's story of him against the world to a more centered and familiar territories type battle for Metallica with the next song. The end of the line features a story talking about someone deep within the trenches of substance addiction. The album's overall theme of death and how it has an almost magnetic allure and a sort of like attractive feeling and aura to it really shines in this song here, and how it talks about the themes throughout the album, how it really brings these to a head. The story here follows someone who's on a fast, intense freight train on the way to death, and they're just about to approach the edge and approach the chasm. I really like the chorus and how it puts this image into your mind of someone rapidly approaching a wall, the blissful ignorance in their head. The fact that they don't know what's going on, all they're caring about is the journey, that end destination is not in mind. And I really like this line right here that I'm gonna read off from the song. New consequence machine, burn through all your gasoline, asylum over time, never mind, you reach the end of the line. Oh, I love that. I'm always a sucker for with the production behind a song really driving forward and trying to match the tone and story being told within the song, and the stuttering drums and twitching guitar solo is a perfect match for the story being told here, and it's a great way to show that Metallica, as many times as they like to get called out for just being a band that writes a bunch of edgy stuff on a piece of paper and attaches some guitar to it, they know how to tell a story. They know how to correlate that story to the music they're creating outside of the lyrics. They know how to make a cohesive song. That's what the end of the line is. And before we move on, I really like to talk about how the way the song just like approaches a screeching, hard climax and then just stops, ends, just like the ride that this person was going through in their battle with substance addiction. Something I'm not super crazy about when it comes to Metallica on all their releases, really just throughout their career in general, is their over-reliance on repetitivity and going back to the same line over and over to establish and drive forward a point and just really hammer it in like a nail into a road, like a road nail into a spike. Railroad spike, that's what I'm looking for. what the fuck? It's a real drag when James Hetfield's idea of building tension within a song is just saying something similar or something that's just the exact same phrase over and over. And in terms, it seems like he's trying to create this idea of, oh, we're bringing back the same thing over and over again. You're feeling tense about it. You're feeling scared about it. Aren't you scared? Here's the same thing back again. That feels like what we're getting here in a lot of the songs throughout the band's discography, as well as this song, Broken Beat and Scarred. First verse, the chorus both rely on repetitivity, going back to the same horse over and over and beating it over the head with the baseball bat, except the brains are getting a little more exposed a little earlier on here, as opposed to some bands who can beat the dead horse, go back to the dead horse over and over again, and still get some flavor out of it. Is that too dark? Probably. Oh well. A lot of bands rely on this and can do it in very good ways, and they use repetitivity to drive a point home for a story. But when it's the same thing that Metallica has done time and time again, talking about overcoming battles and coming out stronger in the end, the repetitivity leads into more repetitivity, creating a layered repetitivity cake that tastes like sawdust. Hell, I'm jumping ahead in the discography here, but I think even on Hardwired to Self-Destruct, they repeat this subject and go back to the subject again on their 10th album, over 30 years into their career, maybe 40. Thankfully, there is an extraordinary 3-song stretch on this album that is among the best stretches of songs within albums throughout the band's whole career. Being the most diverse section of the album and the best section of the album as well, you get pretty much all hits and all markers and all targets hit, assigned, and painted perfectly here. You receive the slightly stripped back metal ballad that really drives the point home that not every single metal band is broken bones, bruised faces, and bloody knuckles 24/7. A Day That Never Comes proves that sometimes you can bring things back and talk from a really emotive aspect and an emotive place as a person. The song showcases a relationship, an abusive relationship at that, between two people, and I believe Lars Ulrich in some interviews actually said that it's supposed to be painted more as a relationship between father and son. And again, it's a great storytelling moment for Metallica. It touches on some similar subjects and something that can be related to other songs in the discography, but isn't like Broken Beat and Scarred, where it's just the exact same subject line. Not to mention, this is probably my favorite song in terms of like looking for great instrumental moments, not just from James Hetfield and Lars, but from Kirk Hammett and Robert Trujillo as well. I think it's Trujillo. I probably could have looked that up before the review, but I am very busy. Yeah, everybody really gets a chance to shine on this song, which is really good, because a lot of the songs from Metallica, they're pure metal in one subgenre or another, or one section of metal or another. But this one really, again, strips it back, like I said in the beginning, and offers an opportunity for everybody to shine equally. Speaking of Robert Trujillo, this is a really great moment to bring up that this is his first album, I believe, with the band. After the admittedly sparse and unimpressive moments that Bob Rock contributed bass-wise in the studio for Saint Anger, it's a welcome addition to have somebody permanently in the role, permanently dedicated to that role, and creating some real art along with the rest of the boys. With a lot of guitar-centric and heavier bands like Metallica and relatives of them, such as Anthrax or Killswitch Engage, bands that sort of rely on the guitar driving the song as opposed to like the lead singer, you really have to dig sometimes in order to bring out the bass and really like acknowledge and understand and hear the bass even. But that didn't happen here on Death Magnetic. I was able to not only just hear Robert with his bass sections, but a lot of times throughout the album, he actually had some exemplary companion pieces, especially in songs like The Day That Never Comes and All Nightmare Long. There's two more final pieces of Death Magnetic that I think are both equally worth talking about. We're gonna hit into the first one with the third and at this time final entry. It's the Unforgiven trilogy, Unforgiven 3. Unforgiven 3 is a final acceptance of the journey seen in the previous two parts. Finally finding the ability to move on and abandoning this forever damned path. It's very much just, again, acceptance, the ability to move on past all the allure of hubris and the almost stuck inside your head power that being such a prominent figure in metal has given James and the rest of the boys over the time that the band has been a big thing. That's not to say that they've ever been like super self-righteous assholes. Maybe they have. I'm not a big super like mega fan of them at all. But that's the story being told. Moving on from this dangerous, again, magnetic pull that all these elements can have, and realizing that it's not all it's cracked up to be, that you need to move on from that and step away from that, as attractive as it may seem. For all intents and purposes, this is the most simple song on the album in terms of like subject matter, and probably one of the more simple songs in the band's discography, but the point hits home all the same and just as hard. The other track that I mentioned that I wanted to talk about as one of the final pieces of the album, Suicide and Redemption, is a very underrated track throughout the band's discography for a few different reasons. You have the first, and I'm pretty sure only, drum solo from Lars Ulrich, as well as this song also receiving the band's distinction as their longest song outside of Merciful Fate and the Outlaw Torn. The automatic credibility also flies in, with the fact being this is the first instrumental song from the band in about 20 years as well. Solid track overall. You know, it's not anything major for me to talk about or really know. I will say, on a personal matter, it's not very much of a song I return to. Like, I don't like go out of my way to listen to Suicide and Redemption. Like, oh, I gotta get this song. For me, that's more like Cyanide and That Was Just Your Life. But, you know, Suicide and Redemption is worth talking about for those reasons, just the pure fact that who doesn't love a nice instrumental song from a band every now and then? Something different, something new, unless you're Polyphia. I think they're that one band that just does pure instrumental work all the time. Well, not every song is a smash hit. I'll even admit that my personal favorite song from this album, Cyanide, isn't the greatest thing of all time. Death Magnetic makes the case that Metallica never forgot where they came from. They just wanted to go off the track a little bit, you know, take a risk. And they stepped into Bear Trap and shout out Saint Anger. But Death Magnetic was their return to form and their return to experimenting and trying to create something new out of a genre that back then started to get a little overdone and now is still kind of overdone. They managed to bring out experimentation and new ideas from within the band's camp. Getting close to being one of the band's best albums they've ever put out, but not quite hitting that #1 mark. I will say it's my personal favorite, and for the reasons I discussed, Death Magnetic by Metallica gets an 8.4 out of 10. And that's the review. Tell me what you think down in the comments. If there's something you think I missed or something that you think I didn't talk about enough or at all, comment it down below. Let's talk about it more. I'd love to get the discussion going about this album. Let me know what you want to see from me next in terms of reviews. Do you want to see more Metallica? Do you want to see more metal? Do you want to see something not metal? Talk to me down in the comments. Let me know how your day is going. And above all else, stay hydrated, guys. Have a great day.